You're listening to the Asian MMA podcast, where we talk about everything and anything going on in the world of Asian MMA. This episode is brought to you by the Bangkok Heat, because it is absolutely brutal in Bangkok right now. I'm Dana Bluen. Today we're talking about what went down over the weekend in Asian MMA. There was some really good stuff, so strap in and let's discuss. Now, jumping right into it, over the weekend we had some good action with Rizin 15. I love these Rizin cards. I was actually saying to Enson Inoue in our conversation last week on the show that I wish Rizin would do more shows. Rizin is probably my favorite promotion in Asia. They do, hands down, the shows that I'm most excited about, that I really enjoy. A big part of that, though, is because they sort of strike that nostalgia chord with the Pride stuff. They really make me feel like Pride is living in the modern era when I know they're not. Now, the main event of the Rizin card was King Mo versus Jiri Prochazka for the inaugural Rizin Light Heavyweight strap. Now, these guys, they actually fought before in Rizin back in 2015. That fight, King Mo finished Jiri with a KO in the first round. This fight did not go that way, and that is why I love rematches, especially when they play out like this with a great story. So King Mo gets that first round finish, back in 2015, And, great fight, but fast, right? This fight couldn't have been more different. Right out of the gate, King Mo comes out and he's just throwing everything he has. He's throwing fire, and, he's just going for that finish again. But we can see that Jiri's a different fighter. He's got better footwork. He's got better movement. He's really using his range against King Mo in the way that you would expect a fighter like him to. And he makes it out of the first round. And they go into the second round. And Mo's starting to tire out. And Jiri kept to a very smart game plan. And in the third round, Mo was essentially done. His gas tank was on E. Jiri sees this. Mo's basically a sitting duck. His movement's bad. He can't really dodge punches. He's not throwing anything significant. Jiri's able to put him away in the third round and get the TKO finish. Great twist to his fight, a fight that was so dominant the first time around, and how the story plays out later is just, that's what I love about MMA. I mean, who doesn't? You get that first one and it really feels like, Mo can just do it again. It was such an easy fight. And you see the progression of a fighter, and they come through and not just capture a championship, but, they basically vindicated a loss they had so many years ago. Fantastic fight. One of my favorites. Now, next I want to get into Road FC, because Road has now finalized their card for Road FC 53, which takes place May 18th. And the headline of that is the final to the lightweight tournament that they've been putting on. That's Kona Sol against Mansuri Bonanui to cap off the lightweight tournament, become a new champion, and also claim that $1 million cash prize for the winner. Now, I know that this is the era of money fights, and everyone talks about the money fights, and Conor McGregor made $100 million, and Khabib made like 20 million or whatever those numbers are in the UFC. We don't see that in Asian MMA. That's very rare to hear about these huge money fights that happen in Asian MMA. So for $1 million tournament champion for a promotion that essentially is only held in Korea is phenomenal. That's a great turnout. That's a great result for the fighter. That's a great result for the fans, because it makes this incredibly motivated tournament format, which I love. I've talked about my love of the tournament format before. I think it's fantastic. And when they do it over this extended time, you're able to see these different storylines come out. And that's really what makes it exciting. The cash is just, a nice motivating factor on top of it. I'm super excited for this tournament conclusion. Of course, I'll talk about it when it happens on the podcast. But if I have time, one of the things I'd like to do is sort of a recap of what this tournament has looked like for Road since the beginning. If I have time, it's 2 weeks away. Maybe I can fit it in and make an episode. I'll have to see, but This tournament has been one of the better things in Asian MMA recently, in recent history. So, very excited. If you don't follow Road, you definitely should. It's great promotion. They put on fantastic fights. Fantastic fights. Now, over the weekend, One Championship held one of their Heroes events in China. And for those of you guys who don't know, the One Hero series is very similar to the One Warrior series. Harping on that same sort of rhetoric that One uses for Asian superheroes and warriors and all of that stuff that they say. But the One Warrior series has been one of my favorite things to watch. I have not really invested myself into the One Hero series, and not for any fault of the Hero series. It hasn't appealed to me for whatever reason. But whenever I do watch it, the fights are fantastic. They have great fights. And I was able to watch some of the card over the weekend, and I really enjoyed it. I liked it. So I hope to start to watch that more frequently and start to maybe make more updates on that. But, really good fights. For those of you guys who aren't aware of the Hero series or what it does, is that its primary focus is to scout talent in China. China is obviously a very large market for both One Championship, the UFC. All the global players want a piece of that Chinese market. One is taking their approach of going in and developing talent for that market that can come up and be very interesting for local fans, to try to sort of migrate them into MMA away from other combat sports that they may watch. And so I think we've seen them do that to some extent here in Thailand as well, with their use of certain fighters who have a Muay Thai background, bringing them into MMA in One Championship, or really, they have a lot of great kickboxing and Muay Thai champions in One Championship as well, because they do Muay Thai and K1 rules. And actually, one of the great Thai champions is women's champ Stamp. She's the Muay Thai and the K1 rules kickboxing champ. Really fantastic personality on her as well. Follow her on Instagram if you don't, because it's fantastic. Now, one final note for today. I have to shout out to Rich Franklin, who this is sort of Asian MMA news, but not, but also is, but also really isn't. And it was announced that he is being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. Now, for those of you guys who remember him as the UFC champion, you probably also remember that he was the face of the UFC when they were coming out of the dark ages of MMA. He was, a very good-looking, articulate, intelligent individual that they could put in front of news pundits or, have do talk shows and really appeal to the general audience and let them see that fighters weren't barbarians, that fighters were intelligent math teachers of all things, and they go on to be champions. After Rich's tenure with the UFC ended, he came over to Singapore to work for One Championship as an executive, and One Warrior Series is actually his baby. He sort of brought that up inside of One internally, and he's done quite a few interesting things with One. So his impact has spanned not just the UFC, not just the American scene, but he's had a big impact on Asian MMA. So Rich, congratulations. Now, that is it for today, guys. But to stay up to date with all things Asian MMA, be sure to follow the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, Facebook, anywhere else you get podcasts. I'll have all the links in the show notes. Check it out.